We're good
All
to go,
right.
Michael.
All right. Welcome everybody to our Surfliner sprint review for winter 2026 sprint 2. For the goal that we had for this sprint was really continue to advance our discovery integration and making sure we had a connected system at the end of our work cycle and really unblocking our production data migration. Some highlights we've made to kind of our agile process improvement. We've blocked some time at the end of each sprint. We're kind of calling that a sprint rollover playbook to give us a little bit more planning time ahead of each sprint and to sort of be able to more consistently be delivering the outcomes that we want. I think we use that rollover time really to get our reviews done and cleared and additional QA items. I think it's actually been working really well. We both have some really interesting objective and subjective feedback that point in that direction. Burn down charts are looking amazing, and I think the team is reflecting on the process is working well. And even with some folks going to Code for Lib, I think it actually worked really well and it was really useful. So we're going to continue to do that and iterate on that as a playbook. So it's not only a one-time thing, but it's a reusable artifact that we're going to use for continuous improvement. So thanks to the entire team for making that work. It's not just a single effort. Y'all did amazing on that. I think if we're going to talk about what our milestone is supporting, we touched on it briefly, but that's the discovery integration. Put a little bit finer point on that. That's publishing from Comet to our discovery prototype, and an immediate scope is images for simple objects. Complex objects and collections are going to be downstream of that. They're not in scope in this particular milestone, but they'll be following shortly. Also is preparing for UCSD discovery development and integration. And just a brief note on the plan to orient folks. Really what we're doing here is making sure that the discovery prototype supports those end-to-end features for publishing and all the other important bits there. Then we're going to modularize it so we can deploy it in multiple environments. And that's really to have a very straightforward path for development and implementation. We could otherwise, if we try and do both of those things at the same time, we kind of risk introducing some complexities in a very nonlinear path. So that's the plan. We've already done a lot of adjacent work to this, specifically for file sets and SuperSkunk metadata and collections. And so these are going to kind of meet up very shortly, probably at sort of the end of this work cycle and the start of the next one. Discovery development, we moved a lot of requirements forward for complex objects, collections, and subcollections, and in tandem with understanding the current API behaviors. That's kind of an iterative process, but I think that we've made a lot of progress there, which we'll hear about in a little bit. Also advanced a lot of Comet's operational stability. Ingest workflows and publishing controls are in much better shape. We've made a ton of progress on finalizing disaster recovery, specifically for Comet database restores, and then also doing some preparatory work for sending metadata to EasyID, and that's really for planning around for the simple ARC metadata, not including the later stage publication metadata. So having that said that in the preamble, we're going to go ahead and try and turn this over to the team, and I'd love for you to hear about the accomplishments that they've been working on. First up here, we're going to hear from Discovery Integration, and Margaret's going to give us some updates.
Yeah. So I'll start with the stuff that I'm tech lead for first. I'm tech lead for SuperSkunk, which is the API for Comet. So that's basically where the discovery platforms are going to get their information about records that we have managed in Comet. And on that side of things, it's going to sound kind of familiar to last sprint. In terms of, oh, we're still figuring out what we want the metadata to look like, and polishing up those responses and all of that. The difference this time, I think, is that we really focused more on the relationships between objects. So that's objects in their files, that's objects and component objects in them, objects in the collections that they're in. Whereas last sprint, we were just focusing on the objects themselves and getting a basic metadata implementation in there. So on the SuperSkunk side, that's what that looked like. We had a lot of good work. I know Vivian did some work on the parent-child relationships, and there was some other work getting those pieces in. So the hope is that very shortly we'll have SuperSkunk as an API, providing all of the relevant metadata that discovery platforms can need. On the other side of things, in terms of the discovery platform itself, when we first started doing the discovery platform development, basically what we did is we took a dump of the database from Comet and we put it in there so that Elisa and her team could get started with some real looking objects and design things. The way we architected that was not particularly robust. It was pretty hard coded to what was in Comet at that time. And so we're really trying to make that more flexible. And in particular, this ties into having UCSB and UCSD separate campuses. We kind of want a shared or as close to shared as we can metadata schema for what discovery looks like in the near term, and just have everything defined once in the discovery platform, even though in UCSB and in UCSD, obviously the two campuses do have two different metadata schemas. So that means that we need more flexibility in terms of how that metadata is defined so that we're not just copying over what's in Comet. So there's been a lot of kind of re-architecturing how things are done internally in the discovery platform to make things more flexible. And that work's kind of ongoing right now. But the hope is that once that's done, then both will have something that right now can be used by each campus, despite the fact that in Comet the metadata looks very different, and then also in the future is more customizable by each campus to their particular discovery needs. I think that's pretty much it for this item. I don't really have anything to show. Like I said, that's a lot of API stuff and internal implementation, so it's not necessarily visible, but that was our focus with respect to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Margaret. All right, I'm going to turn this next section over for discovery development to Elisa, who does have a demo. And I'm going to drop my screen, and then Elisa's going to be able to share in just a minute.
There. So we're Yeah, building on what Margaret just said, David T. and I were able to have some really productive conversations. We were looking at sort of what that theming would look like between the two campuses. We looked deeper into what that API provided us for collections. But we also worked together to make some improvements just within our discovery platform here. And so I'll get us going to start. Um, so I picked a term that gave me just the right amount of data. So if you can search and it'll bring back everything, which is around 16,000 records currently. And it's a lot. And so it takes a minute to load. And so I wanted to find a set that would give us everything that we've done, but kind of still come back pretty quickly. Uh, and so one of the things we improved upon was a bug that we had discovered with our facets. They weren't exactly lining up nicely. Some of the buttons were breaking as you added facets to the mix. So what we were able to do is just create a simpler and more flow uh, aligned set of facets. So as it grows, the list just takes up the space that it needs without having to break, and things were visibly breaking before. With that, actually, I'm going to get rid of some of these because I want to show you the pagination. So we also upgraded our pagination. So this was just a series of pages. It would show you a set of like the first 5 pages and then the last page. The ellipses didn't actually do anything. So we've updated that so that the ellipses will actually page forward the 5 results, allowing you to like really scroll through the information a lot more quickly and usably, right? Like so that you're not having to face having to go page by page when there's 16,000 results over, 1,000 different pages. So that is really nice. We also have these buttons up at the top now, so you can display your view as either a gallery view with all of your imagery, or you can head back to that list view. This is really fun. It's been able to remember how you had your setting as you change your result list. And then another fun thing, so in that discovery about the collections and the collection API, we were able to hook up our breadcrumb trail to the collections page. This was really exciting for me. I dumped in our results list component and told it to only look at the collections. And so what we get is that shared component, but this time displaying the collection members. And so that was really fun to see. So I know we've been using our components for our footer and our header, but to actually see it use one of the more complex components and give me back the information I wanted very quickly. And then when David updated with our views, that information just immediately comes through as that gets pushed into production. It was just really fun to see how the collaborative work and these components can really streamline development that I'm doing. So I wanted to share that because that was really exciting to be able to do that and see that just work. And so I got a kick out of it and wanted to share. But that's what we've done. So a series of usability improvements have given us over this sort of, interactive discovery platform with the test data that we've got.
Awesome. Thanks, Elisa. I'm going to grab
Mhm.
a screen here and we're going to move on to the next section. That was very exciting to see. All right, so let's maybe on this next section, we're going to turn it over to Margaret and Gabriella to help us work through some Comet agenda items.
Yeah, so with regards to this first ticket, it's a lot about images and file uses. We had some conversations, well, we've been having conversations for like a year, I think, but we really finalized, okay, this is what we want to do in terms of what file uses we're using for images, what sequence we want the preference to be in terms of when they're displayed, and what we agreed on, as I recall is if there's a service file, which there won't necessarily be, then show that because we're assuming it's intentional. Otherwise, if there's an intermediate file, use that and use IIIF basically to generate the service file on the fly, um, and so on and so forth down the line of all of these different file uses. And there were about four different places, I think, in the code where this order had been hard coded, just from what we got from Hyrax. So we had to go in and change all of those and then QA all of them. And we uncovered some bugs, I think, while doing that, but not necessarily bugs that are blocking the MVP ingest. We encountered some weird behavior if you had a file set that had both text and image in it, in terms of which one it preferred and how it handled things. And so that work is still outstanding, but it's not blocking what we're trying to do in the near term because we're not planning on having a file set that has text and images both in it in the near term. So we've taken care of the things that are MVP ingest blockers. We've identified a few tickets, I think, for future work that we'll still need to investigate, but it's a lot lower priority. And then I think Gabriella was going to cover the bugs and enhancements, so I'll pass it over to her.
Sure. Thank you, Margaret. So besides addressing MVP blockers, we also resolved several workflow and export bugs. For instance, metadata exports now correctly include component objects within compound objects. Workflow dashboard bugs were fixed so task links load properly and paging functions as expected. A bulk racks importer error that prevented collection creation during batch ingest was also resolved. But we were also able to complete additional enhancements during the sprint. Big wins. We enhanced batch metadata export to include structured metadata fields like complex dates and related resources while preserving the existing ingest structure. Publish and unpublished controls were added for collections, so we can now see this working with publishing and unpublishing from Comet to Shoreline, for example. ADRL Lite is available as a publishing target across all deployed environments. The visibility labels private and Surfliner were removed from Comet. And last, Comet pages or direct links now require login, so it redirects unauthenticated users to a sign-in page, excuse me. Yeah, so overall, this sprint strengthens reliability across ingest, workflows, metadata export, and publishing controls.
Thanks so much, Margaret and Gabriella. Awesome round of updates. Let's go ahead and move on to finalizing disaster recovery with Alex and Michael C. Any quick updates there?
I can give a very brief one. As far as ensuring that our database strategy covers the three R's regarding database backups, the reliability, redundancy, and recovery. We're we have a pretty thorough plan documented and laid out. There are still uh, is a need for additional tests regarding validating the data is where we expect it to be. But besides that, confident that um, we can ensure we're not going to uh, end up with any data loss. I don't know if Alex has anything else to add.
I don't think so. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. And I think the pretty neat thing there is we're on track to wrap that in Sprint 3. It's awesome. And maybe a good foreshadowing for what's next. We noticed we spent a lot of time talking about focusing on that discovery prototype and making sure the integration layers and publishing were working end to end. That's really going to become and is the focus of Sprint 3, which starts tomorrow. And in addition, we're going to have some focused work around control value labels. So having said that, thank you for listening to what we've got here. I am going to drop this screen and then open it up for any questions.
We have a hand from Amy.
This is Amy, and thank you. Margaret, I think it's more to your update on the service file use and the IIIF logic. Is it assuming that if something is a service file, is it a standalone file, or will it also do that if that service file is in a zip?
Well, I think that the way that I don't think it cares, but I think that the only place that this matters in Comet is for the IIIF viewer really and thumbnail generation. I don't think we can generate thumbnails really for zip files, and we can't display them in IIIF right now. So I don't think it matters, but I don't think it'll really do anything. In terms of downloads, I think that we give separate links for both. So it's not really preferring one or the other. And in terms of what it's sending to discovery platforms, I think it sends everything. So I think it's really just for the image viewer. And so in that case, I think it's just, it would need to be an actual image and not a zip of an image, if that makes sense.
That does. No, just thanks, Margaret. Yeah, just clarification on that. So that's helpful.
Great, thanks, Amy. Appreciate you asking. Any other questions? All right, Gabrielle, I think we're okay to stop the recording and then open it up for questions and comments again.